RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD, BlenderHD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Monday, July 1st. We'll be taking a look at the very small 3-game MLB slate today. The games are kind of spread out. There's not much going on today, but there's always something going on when it's Mondays with McCool. James McCool, the co-author with me on the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports 15-hour audio DFS masterclass you can pick up at theoryofdfs.com. Hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. We'll have a crunch time later today, 2:30 Eastern. So tune back into the channel for that. They'll break down the position by position, everything, go over the weather, which there shouldn't be an issue today. It's a very, very laid-back, casual Monday, James, and it seems like you're wearing casual fare, just a nice little white T-shirt and a little slow day, and I don't know, maybe it's warm outside. You could barbecue out and just chill and watch 3 baseball games that are spread out 5 hours apart from one another.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a pretty relaxing day. As you noted, I'm wearing a white T-shirt. That signifies that today is not going to be a day where I work very hard. Margaret and I got a family membership at an athletic center yesterday. So only 3 games. Might as well go work out, play basketball or something. Maybe play some pickup basketball. Jordan, I suck at basketball. I'm a relatively big guy, but I'm really bad at basketball. So I'm gonna go try to get better. Maybe learn how to shoot a 3-pointer. Maybe.
Yeah, but you're good at football. Right.
I'm very good at football. Yeah. I'm pretty good at baseball too, but I'm really bad at basketball. Basketball is just not my sport, man. I don't know why. I probably could have made a decent forward, but I think I'm too small for a forward, and I'm not fast enough to be a guard. So just a weird position for me to be in for basketball, I think.
Would you find it odd if I said that I wasn't very good at any sports?
Nope.
The sports that I was actually halfway decent in are all like the non-contact sports, tennis, volleyball, stuff like that. Stuff that I can't get hurt.
I could see tennis. Dink was really good at tennis too, right? Drew Dinkmeyer, and he's not exactly the most athletic looking person. So I can see tennis being something you two both would be good at. That's not right. A shot at anybody, but you know.
Yeah, but there's no physicalness. Doesn't necessarily matter as much in those sports because you're not like trying to tackle people or running into things or throwing the thing as hard as possible or anything. And it's just like, oh, okay. As long as you're agile and you could be accurate, pretty good.
Yeah, that's really what matters. So yeah, just it should be a pretty relaxing day. I have like 6 total bets that I was able to make this morning. When I ran my bet sheet, I thought that there was an error because I didn't look at the slate before I ran my bet sheet, and I was like there's like 4 bets worth taking on the entire slate, and then I saw there's 3 games, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess don't unload the pull clip.
I didn't even bother today. Like I didn't even bother today. I was watching wrestling last night. I just said, oh, 3 games, whatever. That's I'll wake up in the morning, see what's there. I have some home run props. I think that's literally all I have. I have like a couple of other hitter stuff, but no, I got 2 pitcher props, but not much. Nothing K wise. Alex says the Pick'em Streets are pretty nice, actually. Okay, maybe we should check that out. But let's first check out the MLB slate. 3 games on DraftKings. Obviously, we got the Coors game late that has 11.5 total. Everything else is kind of standard fare. 6 pitchers. You got to pick 2 of them on DraftKings. This is always these short slates or game theory oriented slates. Is it quite clear that the top projected pitcher should be Mackenzie Gore, 9,800 against the Mets?
No. I mean, yes.
No, it shouldn't be clear. It shouldn't be clear.
I guess the Mets are annihilating everyone they face. It's not like Gore is an ace. He's good. But no.
Well, he's an ace for the Nationals. Who else does the Nationals have pitching?
That just because they're the best pitcher on a team doesn't mean they're an ace.
Okay. I said on this slate, I see like the if you're going to play a pitcher, you're playing Gore or Peterson on the other side, who I don't find all that trustworthy, but I'm not scared of the Nationals.
Yeah.
Then you have Hunter Brown at 8,500 against the Blue Jays. He's had like a 30+% strikeout rate recently. Toronto doesn't strike out all that much. I don't mind him, but I mean, outside of that, you got Yariel Rodriguez against the Astros, who probably doesn't even pitch 5 innings.
Right.
And then you got the two pitchers. You got Bryce Wilson and Austin Gomber in Coors. That seems like a stay away. So, like, at some point, Mackenzie Gore becomes the ace of the slate.
Right.
How do you play Gore? You play Brown. You play Coors. You're done, right? I mean, as far as like the chalk type of construction. But do you see in your projections that Gore and Brown are closer together?
Yeah. I don't have anybody projected over 17 fantasy points today. And I can see on the screen, that there's nobody projected well, right? And typically when I look at slates like this, I don't necessarily look at it from a raw points perspective because nobody projects well. So I would rather look at it like, okay, if everybody is going to be paying for the combo, because these pitchers aren't even expensive either, right? I mean, you can, I haven't tried to build yet. You can very, very likely build Mackenzie Gore and Hunter Brown or Mackenzie Gore and David Peterson like that. You don't have any issues. It's kind of like the Thanksgiving slate for NFL, right? Salary cap doesn't actually matter on the Thanksgiving slate for NFL. The salary cap today probably doesn't matter at all, even with Coors on the slate. So I just think that I would rather look at it like, okay, if I think that every pitcher is generally bad today, I don't think this slate will be decided on pitching scores. So I'd rather just pay up at bats and just use whatever pitchers I can fit. None of them project well, so whatever.
So you're not so you wouldn't prioritize Gore, Brown, Peterson. I mean, you're going to play Austin Gomber today against the Brewers?
No, because I'll probably want to play the Brewers. I might play Bryce Wilson though.
But do you consider, like, if we, for the context of this slate, we always talk about pitchers in buckets: the A bucket, the B bucket, the C bucket. If you don't make a bucket, that means I think you're crazy for playing them. On a 3-game slate, there's no pitcher that doesn't make a bucket because there's only 3 games. So you're not crazy for playing one of the Coors pitchers. But I would think that the A bucket is Gore, Brown, Peterson. The B bucket is Rodriguez, and the C bucket is Wilson and Gomber. And I don't really even want to play Rodriguez. Like, I would just flip guys that aren't going to pitch Wilson. 6 innings. It's just hard. It's hard for me to want to play someone that, if they get beat up in the first 2 innings, they're dead. I mean, they're dead. They're not going to go long enough.
Well, Yariel Rodriguez sucks too. I mean, it's not even like you're getting good innings.
I'm stating the case, even if he didn't suck.
Right. Yeah. I mean, not only is he likely not going to pitch more than 4 innings, but he sucks too. They're not even going to be good innings. I would, if you're going to go with the buckets here, I agree. Davidson, Brown, Gore have to be in bucket A ish, like the top bucket, whatever the bucket is going to be. And then I would say that Bryce Wilson is the one that I'm willing to hold my nose on. And then Yariel Rodriguez and Austin Gomber, I'm just not going to touch them. I don't see a reason to.
And the reason that you're willing to hold your nose with Bryce Wilson is that, like, the Rockies are not a good team.
No,
like, they play in a good ballpark, but they're not, like, you'd rather play, like, neutral wise. I mean, the Brewers are a way better team than the Rockies. So maybe 6K Bryce Wilson gets out of there with 10 points and you're fine. And you have the Brewers on top of that. And if we take a look at SimLabs actually has Bryce Wilson as the most positively leveraged plus EV pitcher on the slate, and Gore being the worst on the slate. And Yariel Rodriguez being the second worst, even though he's not going to be all that owned. It's just that he doesn't pitch long enough and he sucks. Those are scientific terms, James.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm with you with the Bryce. Well, like, if you're gonna play any pitcher for like leverage purposes, Bryce Wilson's probably the guy. Probably.
Okay. So on course slates, especially on a short course slate, you're basically like you have to make the decision of, am I going to play cores or am I going to try to find leverage against cores? And I think the two ways you can look at it today are going to be, do you want to play the Rockies and fully stack cores, right? Because that game total is high based on Vegas. Do you want to play the Rockies and a Brewers in a game stack, or do you want to play Bryce Wilson? I haven't ran contest sims yet. I imagine that Mackenzie Gore looks absolutely awful for my sims as well, because he's expensive and I have him projected. He does not separate away from the pack whatsoever. So and he's expensive. So why would I pay him? Now, all of that being said, for Bryce Wilson is like an end of the rotation arm, right? Like he's like a 4.5 xFIP guy, 4.5 to 5. He's end of the rotation, just like a fringe dude. He deserves to be 6K. We go back and forth on arguments on this, but I will usually look at a slate, any slate, and think, is this pitcher overpriced for where they should be on the season? Not just on the slate itself, but for the season. People run into traps of playing pitchers like Julio Teheran in the last couple of years just because it's a 4-game slate and he is the best pitcher available, but they would price him up like $9,500, and you should never play a $9,500 Julio Teheran ever. So I usually like to look at pitchers relative to their full season stuff, and Mackenzie Gore I think is a little bit overpriced here, and everybody else looks about right. Austin Gomber is overpriced at $6,500. He's just an absolutely atrocious play. So slates like this are hard. If I'm ever being honest with people with slates like this, I'm like, just take out some props and like go hang out with your family. This slate is like, if you're playing this slate, what's your angle on playing this slate?
But the angle is this. So it's like Silverback Racing TV says, they can't do Bryce in Colorado. So to me, it's these slates are not about what, like you said before, it's not a projection based slate. What is a way for me to build a handful of lineups, one lineup, 2, 3 lineups that give me the best shot at first place if it happens? And if that doesn't happen, it's less probable. But when it happens, it wins me a lot of money. I'd rather do that than just be alongside like a million people with the same types of lineups. So like, can't do Bryce. Well, on a 3-game slate, you can do any pitch. I mean, anything. Yeah. Dude, it's quite possible that all of these games have 10+ runs in them, and that all the pitch like that the winning lineup has a pitcher that has a -2.5 score. Like those are absolutely within the range of outcomes. So I have no problem with Bryce. I have no problem with any. If you wanted to play Austin Gomber, play him. I mean, it's a 3-game slate. The opportunity cost is nothing, right? But I'm not going to be just sitting there with like one of the Peterson, Gore, Brown, 2 of Peterson, Gore, Brown in a Milwaukee stack, and then just be like, yeah, well, when Jackson Churio hits for the cycle, it's like, well, that doesn't even mean I cash. He's going to be 40+% owned at 3,500. So like, it doesn't mean anything. I'd rather Jackson Churio fail and then me have a great path for first place. So I have no problem rocking Bryce Wilson, but I also have no problem, finding some way to get leverage on this slate. If you don't want to do it at pitcher, you're doing it at hitters. If you don't want to do it at hitters, you got to do it at pitcher. You got to do something like that.
So I'm gonna throw you some knowledge here, Silverback Racing. When you say it's the fact that he has a lot of movement or on his pitches and altitude kills those pitches, even if that is true, which he does rely on his breaking stuff, you should. Here's golden advice: stop trying to predict the future and instead try to win money.
Right.
It's not about predicting the future on what he is going to do. Like, yeah, we know, and based on the projections,
we have a model. We have a model for that. He projects as the 5th worst, the 5th out of 6 pitcher on the. It's not like he projects good. He projects horribly, right? But it's not a bet. But if he's going to be 15% owned on a 6-game slate, would you rather play the 2 pitchers that are 40, 50, 60% owned, or one that's less owned? So when Bryce Wilson does do well, he'll do well some of the time, and Mackenzie Gore will do badly some of the time. and then you pass like 87% of the lineups in your contest, you don't have to have that great of a lineup anymore. But when you play the chalk, if you're going to play the chalk pitchers in the chalk stack, like everything has to be perfect for you to even sniff first place. And when you even do well, you may come in like 82nd because like a 1v1, 2v2 of a batter or whatever is the difference between like a million different lineups. Like this is how you play daily fantasy sports, not how you predict outcomes of. We already have a model for that. That's why you subscribe to RotoGrinders. You click on that link in the description, get $40 off your first month.
And also, having experience, of course, doesn't really mean anything. Well, like we've seen that before. I digress. It's about winning money. It's not about predicting the future. I think that Bryce Wilson, and I have Bryce Wilson projected reasonably, like not awfully, but reasonably. And all of that said, like Rockies aren't really a good team. So if you want to predict the future on this and say, oh, well, I want to not play Bryce Wilson because of X, Y, or Z, it's like it just won't do much for you on this slate. If it was a bigger slate and you wanted to try to say things like that, the projections agree with you. It's like, okay, yeah, he's not good, but that's not the point. Especially on a 3-game slate. That's just not the point.
Right. If it's an 11-game slate, we wouldn't be talking about playing Bryce Wilson today at all.
No.
Right?
No.
The same thing when it comes to hitters. We'll go to the tiers that, like on an 11-game slate, you could say, oh, I'm going to fade Coors and I'm going to find the other play. When Coors fails, like, what's the team that goes off? Well, there's not many. There's only 4 other teams, right? So it's kind of hard to avoid it. So, I mean, the total in this game is like 3 runs higher than any of the other games. I think the Brewers will be the highest owned team, but also the highest projected team. But because of their ownership, I got to put them in the B tier.
Yeah.
Because they would be an A tier team by projection, but B tier because of ownership.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could even put them down to C because of way high ownership. But I think the Rockies may be over-owned for there because people are going to play. If they're not going to play the Brewers, they're going to play the Rockies. I mean, people are going to look at Bryce. People are going to be like Silverback and go, "It's Bryce Wilson. How do we not play the Rockies?" So I'm putting the Rockies on the C tier. Do you kind of agree with this at least?
Yeah, I think C tier is right. I think their projections are fine. I do agree they'll be overpriced or overowned.
The first game on the slate is the Astros and the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays, I have home run props on. That doesn't mean Hunter Brown is going to do badly. It's just that the pricing on the Blue Jays home run props are just, there's an edge on them, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I got a home run prop on Vlad, on Turner, on Springer, on Varsho, assuming that's in their lineup. It's quite possible. I think Schneider's in their lineup. I think their lineup came out. Right, Schneider's in. Okay, but it's still Varsho, Springer, Turner, Vlad. Right.
Yeah.
They have a sub-4 total against Hunter Brown, but Hunter Brown's going to be owned.
Yeah.
I don't think the Blue Jays are going to be very owned on this slate.
No.
I think the Astros will be moderately owned, but I think it's going to mostly center around guys like Alvarez, like the beginning of their, like, Altuve at second base, or if you're paying off for a one-off Jordan Alvarez. Are the Astros an A stack on this slate?
They are.
Is Yariel Rodriguez, or is that, or are they not even? Would you rather play a Coors team, or would you rather play the Astros today?
I'd rather play the Astros. I think the Astros, when you take into account projection and ownership, the Astros are the best team on this slate. I have the Astros projected as the top stack overall in my models, like above Brewers and Colorado. Just because Yariel Rodriguez is that bad. And the bullpen for Toronto, when they are not in a closeout situation, has been really bad this year as well. So I really, really like the Astros. And the Astros are one of the hottest teams in the league. I mean, over the last month, they have won more teams than any team in the league, putting out plenty of runs. So I really like the Astros on the slate. I think they're a really good spot.
The Blue Jays, leverage alone. I mean, just to be clear, there's going to be no F tier team, just like there's no out of bucket pitcher. Like, you could play anyone. There's There's no F would mean just stay away. There's no stay away. So you kind of start from a D spot just to begin with. But I mean, the Blue Jays should be where I would put them in the C tier for leverage purposes. I'd rather the other game is the place that I'd rather get the leverage than here.
Yeah.
Like I'd almost rather play Hunter Brown than one of the two pitchers in the Mets Nationals game for leverage. But I mean, if you want to do the complete opposite, that's fine. I think the Blue Jays perfectly fine stack if you want to take it. But I think I'd rather have the Blue Jays as one-offs.
Yeah, I like Toronto. They project about as well as anyone else, but they are going to have. Currently, they are projected for the least ownership on the slate in aggregate. So
really,
yeah.
I would think that the Mets may get lower ownership.
I do not have the Mets with lower ownership.
Oh,
still early.
How about the National? I just think more people are going to play Gore. I think Gore's 1, Brown's 2, and Peterson's 3. So it's hard for me to think how the Mets that owned if Gore's going to be like 50% owned.
I don't think Gore's going to be like 50% owned.
Well, you think most people are going to play Brown plus Peterson?
Yeah.
So is the best leverage stack the Nationals then?
I think that the Nationals are just as good of a leverage stack as Toronto. I think they're both right there. I have the Nationals projected slightly worse, but it's a better matchup. The ownership should probably be about the same. I think, like within.
It won't be. I don't think so. I think the Nationals may be very low owned. Especially if you think the Mets are going to be higher, because I was going to put the Nationals at C and the Mets at B, but the way that you're saying, you think the Mets are actually going to get more ownership and Gore is not going to get as much, and then I would want to flip that around like that.
Yeah, I think that looks right. I think the Mets are going to have the third most ownership on the slate. Maybe second behind or maybe fourth behind Colorado. I think it's going to be Milwaukee with by far the most. And then I think it's going to be Houston with the second most. And then Colorado and New York Mets, I could see either one of them being third highest. I'm not sure which one. The Mets have been so hot. And Mackenzie Gore, while he's good, I think the people are going to get kind of like sticker shocked on him at 9,800, looking at the projections on this slate. And I just think there's going to be some recency bias on that. And we're going to see the Mets kind of creep up a little bit. So I think that this looks right. I think Washington is a more valuable leverage stack than the Mets, though I have the Mets projected as a pretty good stack. So
it's just that, I mean, the Mets aren't cheap anymore. Like
No,
I can see Lindor being owned because the shortstop position, like the weaker positions. But I mean, Alonso's 5K and JD Martinez is 45, Nimmo is 47. I mean, yeah, you get like the Jose Iglesias is at the bottom.
Yeah, but those prices don't matter if you're not playing Gore, though. Doesn't matter.
You're absolutely right? Because if you're playing the Mets, you probably don't have $9,800 Gore in your lineup, and then the price. Yeah, you're right. The price doesn't even matter. Okay, I can be down with that. I mean, if you think the ownership on Peterson and Gore is higher than what we even predict, then I'd be much more inclined to play the Mets and the Nationals. If you think the opposite, then play those pitchers.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Like, we know for sure that the Coors bats will be high owned.
Yeah.
We know for sure that the Coors pitchers will be low owned. Like, that's one thing we could be. We're not going to wake up. We're not going to. I mean, we have to wake up at 8:40. The games are so far apart from each other. Be careful with that. Be careful, putting some guy in your lineup and there's not being an eligible player for that price in the Coors game. I don't think it's going to be 8:40 and it locks and Bryce Wilson is going to be like 37% owned. Right. So and we're not going to, we're not going to look and go, Willie Adames and Jackson. They're not going to, Jackson Churio ends up being 12% owned. Like that ain't happening on this, assuming that he plays, right? I mean, obviously if he's not like Reese Hoskins at 4,600 is not going to be like, oh, he only came in at 10% ownership, right? I mean, but it's expensive. Contreras is 6,300. Yelich is 6,500. But I guess if you don't play Gore, I mean, you can fit in Hunter Brown, David Peterson, and still play Contreras and Yelich. I mean, you probably play Monasterio in the stack. You'd probably, probably not going to play $5,600 Bryce Terang batting ninth. It's a little bit expensive for him. I mean, he could steal 14 bases in a game, I guess, but I mean, I don't think that's going to happen.
Mets are not.
See, Alex Santi says Mets are an A stack against the chalk pit. Yeah, that's what my natural inclination is. I think Gore is going to be 50% owned.
I don't think Gore will be 50% owned. I think he'll be. I think Gore will be like 35 to 40% owned, and I only say that because I think that people are going to look at it. They're going to look at the Mets. They're going to look at an easier matchup for David Peterson against Washington. They're going to look at Hunter Brown against Toronto. Like I don't think people are going to want to pay $9,800 for Mackenzie Gore. I think people will. I think he'll be like 35 to 40% owned. I do not think that he will be like 50+% owned. And yeah, Meredith has had this very annoying thing lately of coming into my office and scratching to want out, and then 6 minutes later wanting to scratch come back in. It's very frustrating, very tilting. But here we are. We move on with life.
Why don't you just leave the door open?
Because I have a child.
And the child would come in. And does the child scratch at the door to come in every 6 minutes?
No. The child doesn't need to scratch at the door. He just busts in because he's gigantic. Actually, very funny. The other day, I was on a meeting. This is a props of nothing, but I was in a meeting, and I had my door locked, and he had friends over, neighbor kids over, and
hold on a second, just before you get to this.
Okay,
isn't your kid like 1.5 or something?
He's 3.5.
3.5. Okay. So you had his friends over. He didn't like call up and just like schedule something. Like you made it sound like he had his friends over.
Sure. Okay. So we had his friends over, neighbor kids. And I had my door locked and I was on a meeting, and he grabbed his toy scissors. And you know how on doors in houses they have that little slit lock? He grabbed his toy scissors, jammed them in, unlocked it, and opened up my door and barged into my meeting using his toy scissors as a fake key for the door. It's pretty incredible.
What did he want? What did he barged in? He was obviously needed something.
Just came in to say hi.
Okay, isn't it nice?
It's very nice.
You're gonna be thinking, right, when you're 80 years old, that why doesn't he call, right? Like that's it. So cherish. This is what they say. I don't have any kids, right? I don't want anyone to call anyway, so it doesn't matter. Even if I had kids, I don't want them to call.
Yeah, no, it is adorable. It's cute. And he's just a hell of a kid. He's hilarious. He's fun, but he's a tornado, man. And he's not only is a tornado, he's gigantic for his size. He's basically the size of a 5-year-old. So like he has all of the energy of a 3-year-old in the body of a 5-year-old. And he just never stops. I can't keep up with him. That's why I work all the time.
Right. Wait until he gets he'll be a lineman for the football team.
It's gonna be huge, dude. I'm hoping he plays basketball or baseball. I don't want to play football.
Well, maybe he'll just play DFS. He doesn't even play sports. You'll just teach him that.
No. Jordan, haven't you heard? DFS is dying. It's dead. It's gone.
I haven't heard. I haven't gotten the newsletter. DFS is dying?
Yeah, DFS is dying. Yeah. Get the memo. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, better. Hey, you heard it here first. Better get in on that 3-game slate before it's all dead. Before it's all dead, you got to get in. We got crunch time later today, 2:30 Eastern. Roth will be on with Cheese and Tim, I believe. And they'll break down and the slate, and we probably still won't have Coors lineups by then. So good luck to that. With all the chalk bats, and make sure that the guys are in, you guys are out. We'll be back again tomorrow. I mean, at least tomorrow we got normal games. I mean, I didn't realize, last night I'm like, okay, let me take a look at tomorrow's lines, and I'm like, what happened to all the games? What happened to everything? What happened? What are we doing on Monday? But we got July 4th coming up, so I guess they're shifting it around so they could get more games in on Thursday. Who knows? All I know is that you got to hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Hit the thumbs, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to know when we go live. I'll be on tomorrow with Will. Break down more. There will be a normal MLB day. And as always, James, your stuff's at paydirtdfs.com.
Yep, paydirtdfs.com. You can find me on Twitter at paydirt_DFS. Have a whole bunch of things planned for the next couple months. Getting excited for NFL season here pretty soon. I'm sure we'll start talking about it here pretty soon. So pretty stoked.
Right. Over at Paydirt DFS, you could barge into his site anytime you want. You don't even need toy scissors.
Yeah. Yep.
Okie doke. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm always here. 11 o'clock Eastern, Monday through Friday. Talking about all things you're thinking about. The daily fantasy, props, and pick 'em on RotoGrinders Today.